Tears of Alesia. Season 1 Episode 1, Shadows of Betrayal. Life, they say, can lay its icy hands on humans. Alesia was no exception. She had just received the news of her mother's death a few minutes before her job interview. She was next in line. Her mother was the only person she had left after the death of her father, Mr. Opong, a year ago. Since then, life had been showing her its true colors. Alesia, who was a few weeks pregnant, was the result of a gang rape 40 days ago. No one knew about this, not even her dead mom. A neighbor called her on the phone and told her the news about her mom. Stunned by the news, she quickly ran from the reception and left her particulars and handbag behind. Her house was just a 40-minute walk from where she would have the interview. She got home only to see the police at the scene. Her mom's death appeared to be a suicide. She got there early enough to see her mom still hanging on a tied rope around her neck from the ceiling. "Oh, Mama. Mama. Why do you have to leave me behind?" Alesia kept repeating words as tears began to run down her cheeks as she looked up at her mother's corpse. "So is it real? Or am I dreaming?" The police took her away from the scene. Mensah, the neighbor who had called her earlier to inform her about the news, accommodated her at his place as the police took the corpse to the morgue. She kept weeping. Mensah consoled her and offered her water to drink. A few minutes after drinking the water, she felt drowsy and suddenly fell into a deep slumber. Mensah looked at her as she lay on the sofa and smiled. He had drugged Alesia. Wickedness and lust took over him. He quickly undressed himself and raped her. That was not enough. He took her nude pictures to serve as a piece of evidence to blackmail her, and also to make sure she tells no one about it. A few minutes after 9 p.m., Alesia woke up. She immediately noticed that Mensah had slept with her. Mensah, on the other hand, was nowhere to be found. He had left the premises before Alesia could wake up. With pains in her abdomen, she managed to walk back home. Too much for her in a single day. Now the thought of how to give her mom a befitting burial ran through her mind. At this moment, she had no money, no family, no friends, and no loved ones. It was just her and her unborn child. Days came by, Mensah was nowhere to be found, and her mom was still in the morgue. She had spent a lot on the morgue expenses and had nothing left. A knock came from the door. She rushed to check who it was, only to find a brown envelope at her doorstep. She looked around to see if she could trace the one who delivered it, but she saw no one. However, she took the envelope inside and curiously opened it. It contained copies of her nude photos. "Oh my God. Mensah, what wrong have I done to you?" she kept speaking to herself. Her postures in the photos looked like she posed for the camera. Mensah was very smart about that. It will be difficult for her to even report that Mensah had raped her. In the envelope was another message: "A Semper Guest House, Room 105, 10 p.m. Alesia didn't know the extent to which the photos had gotten. It was obvious that Mensah wanted to meet her at the guest house. She also saw this as an opportunity to vindicate herself. She planned to secretly record the conversation she would have with Mensah when she got to the guest house. She set off at exactly 9:15 p.m. and got to the guest house 10 minutes before the time. She located the given room number, 105, and knocked on the door. Her assumption was right. Mensah was the one who answered the door, as she expected. He invited her in and offered her a seat, which she refused. Mensah laughed when she rejected the offer. He had his own code of ethics, and to him, no woman should ever say no. He goes for what he wants, no matter how he will get it, and for Alesia to reject a seat from him, violence was the only thing he could think of. Mensah looked furious. He looked straight into Alesia's eyes and offered her a seat again. Before she could open her mouth to say no, Mensah landed a heavy backhand slap on her face that got her dizzy. He immediately pushed her against the wall, turned her around, and penetrated her from behind. Tears ran down her cheeks helplessly as she wept her heart out. Mensah was so aggressive. Suddenly, a rectangular-shaped object fell from Alesia's pocket. This drew the attention of Mensah. He noticed it was a voice recorder. Alesia was in deep trouble now. A small recorder lying on the floor under dim light, its red button glowing faintly. Who will come to her rescue? For the second time, she has been raped by the same man. Her pregnancy was as a result of a gang rape. Her mum, who was her only hope, committed suicide due to an unknown reason. Perhaps she should do something. She just gave up. Mensah, on the other hand, kept staring at her. Alesia quickly rushed to the door, but it was locked. "Why are you doing this to me?" Alesia kept asking him. Mensah, who was highly aroused, got angrier. With the tape recorder in his hand, he again landed a blow on her face that got her bleeding through her nostrils. She was completely weak now, she just couldn't cry for help. The more she fights for her life, the more torture she endures. Mensah enjoyed seeing her in pain. He kept abusing her countless times. While in the act, there came a knock on the door. Could that be her savior? A savior indeed. It was one drunk guy who had lost his way to his room. He kept knocking on the door until Mensah couldn't take the noise anymore. Mensah opened the door. Alesia, on the other hand, was so weak and helpless, her voice was so faint that she could hardly hear herself when she cried for help. When Mensah noticed the guy was drunk, he pushed him away and shut the door behind him. Alesia tried helping herself up from the floor, but her legs were weak. She turned and looked into Mensah's eyes and asked again, "What wrong have I done to you?" Suddenly, the emotional aspect in humans visited Mensah and touched his heart. A rush of sympathy filled him. "I wanted you, Alesia, you have been all over my mind, and all my efforts to be your boyfriend never bore fruit, and this is the only way to get you," he answered. He reached his hands to help her up, got her dressed, and walked her to the door. "I have your photos. If you tell anyone about this, I'm sure you know the outcome," Mensah threatened. When Alesia noticed he was sober, she gathered the courage and knocked his face with her elbow. The hit was so hard that he got a serious cut on his forehead. Before he could get back on his feet, Alesia pushed him against the edge of the bed with her last strength. He lay down motionless. Mensah was dead. Alesia, out of pain and trying to secure her life, didn't notice it but instead, tied him up against the bed. She wanted to rush out and call the police. As she opened the door, the hotel attendant was already standing by the door. He forced his way in when he noticed that Alesia was acting weird. He saw that Mensah was tied to the bed, he checked his pulse and noticed that he was dead. "He is dead. You killed him?" Having asked this, the hotel attendant, without waiting for any explanations, got hold of Alesia to prevent her from escaping. "I can explain," Alesia pleaded.